The room is quiet in that familiar way, not peaceful, just still enough that your thoughts start getting louder. You're sitting there, phone in your hand, not really paying attention to anything on the screen, just scrolling slowly, buying yourself a little more time before you have to think about what you already know. You had a moment earlier. Nothing dramatic, no big decision, just a small, clear point in the day where you knew exactly what you should do. It showed up for a second, then it passed. Maybe it was when you looked at the clock and realized you still had time to do the work. Maybe it was when you felt that slight pull to get up and train. Maybe it was when you were about to say something or not say something, and you knew what the better version of you would choose. You felt it, and then you didn't follow it. Not loudly, just quietly stepped around it. And now you're here, at the end of the day again, trying to make it feel smaller than it actually was. It's not that serious. I'll fix it tomorrow. I just needed a break. But there's something underneath all of that, something you can't scroll past. Because the problem isn't what you did, it's what you didn't do in the exact moment it mattered. And that's where this starts to change. Because what you felt today wasn't a lack of motivation. It was a moment where your standards showed up and you didn't enforce it. You've probably told yourself this is a discipline issue, or a consistency issue, or maybe just timing. You think if you had more energy, more structure, more clarity, things would click. But that's not what's actually happening. You don't break under pressure because you're unmotivated. You break because of what you believe about yourself in that moment, not consciously, quietly. There's a version of you that exists when things are calm, when you're planning, thinking, resetting. That version of you has standards, clear ones, strong ones. You know exactly how you want to live. But that version of you isn't the one making decisions when it's uncomfortable. The version of you that decides is the one that shows up under pressure, tired, stressed, distracted, alone. That version doesn't operate on intention. It operates on identity. And identity is built from repetition, not from what you say you'll do, from what you've done consistently, especially when it was uncomfortable. You don't fall apart under pressure. You reveal yourself. And if you don't like what shows up, that's not a failure. That's information. Look at how this actually plays out. Not in theory, in your real life. You set your alarm earlier. Not dramatically early, just enough to get ahead of your day. You go to sleep thinking, this is it. I'm back on track. The alarm goes off. You wake up. For a few seconds, it feels good, like you're someone different. Then the weight hits. You're tired. It's quiet. No one's watching. And now there's a gap between the person who set the alarm and the person who has to get up. And that's where the decision happens. You negotiate. Just today, you need the rest. You'll start tomorrow. You hit snooze. And just like that, your real standard shows up. Not the one you said you had, the one you enforced. Now shift it. You're at work. There's something you've been avoiding. You know exactly what it is. It's not unclear. It's just uncomfortable. You sit down, open your laptop, and instead of starting, you check something first, then something else. Then you drift. You stay busy enough to feel productive, but you don't touch the thing that matters. That's not a time problem. That's a pressure moment you didn't hold. And then there's the part most people avoid looking at, the private promises, the ones no one hears. I'm done with this. I won't keep doing this. I'm serious this time. And then the situation shows up again. Same feeling, same discomfort, same decision. And you fold again. Not loudly, just slightly. Just enough to stay the same. And every time that happens, something shifts internally. You don't say it out loud, but you start to feel it. I don't hold my standards when it matters. That's where identity changes. Not in the big moments, in the small ones you repeat. At some point, you have to stop trying to fix the surface. Because this was never about effort. It was about who shows up when effort is required. You've been trying to become more disciplined. But discipline is not the starting point. Identity is. You don't need to become someone who tries harder. You need to become someone who enforces their standard, especially when it's inconvenient. That's a different person. Not louder, not more intense, more consistent, more honest, more aligned. because standards only exist when they survive pressure. Otherwise, they're preferences, and preferences collapse the second things get uncomfortable. There are a few thoughts you keep repeating that keep you stuck here. The first one sounds harmless. I'll lock in when I feel ready. But readiness is a feeling, and feelings change. You don't become consistent by waiting for alignment. You become consistent by acting before it shows up. The second one sounds hopeful. I just need one good week. But you've had good weeks. You've had strong starts. That's never been the issue. The issue is what happens when the week stops feeling good. Because that's when your identity takes over, not your plan. The third one feels almost true. I work better under pressure. But that's not pressure. That's urgency. And urgency is temporary. Real pressure is quiet. It's the moment where no one is forcing you, and you still have to choose. That's where you've been losing. Not because you don't know, because you haven't become someone who holds the line there. So the shift has to be practical, not complicated, but real. First, define your non-negotiables, not 10, 2 or 3, clear, simple, things that happen regardless of how you feel. A training session, a focused work block, a daily action tied to what matters. No conditions. Second, identify your breaking points, not your ideal moments, your weak ones. Late at night, after long days, when you're frustrated, that's where your standard is tested. That's where your identity is built. Third, act faster than your thoughts. The longer you sit in the moment, the more your mind will negotiate. Shorten the gap. See it, move, before the story starts. Fourth, track enforcement. Not results, not perfection. Did you hold the standard? Yes or no? That's the only question that matters early on, because identity is built on proof, not intention. Fifth, recover immediately. You will slip. That's not the issue. The issue is letting one moment turn into a pattern. Break it fast. Reassert the standard. Because repetition decides who you become, and who you become decides everything else. Slow down for a second. Be honest. Where do you already know you're not holding the line? Not in theory, in reality. What's the exact moment where you usually give in? The time, the feeling, the situation. You know it. You've been there enough times. Now ask yourself something harder. When that moment shows up again, what version of you is going to be there? Not the one you talk about, the one you've been practicing, because that's the one that decides. Pressure is not your enemy. It's your mirror. It shows you who you actually are when things are not ideal. And that version of you is the one building your life. Quietly, every day. You don't rise to your standards in those moments. You fall to what you've repeated. And if you change what you repeat, you change what shows up. Every time you hold the line when it's uncomfortable, something shifts. Not outside. Inside, you start trusting yourself again. You stop negotiating as much. You stop explaining things away because you don't need to. Your actions start matching your words. And that's where stability comes from. Not motivation, alignment. You don't need a new plan. You don't need more content. You don't need another reset. You need to stop breaking your own standard in the moments that define it. That's it. That's where this changes. Not tomorrow, not next week, the next time it shows up, and it will, soon. The same situation, the same feeling, the same choice. And in that moment, you will either repeat the pattern or interrupt it. And that interruption is where identity changes. Quietly, permanently. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming consistent in the moments that used to break you. Because that's what builds self-trust. And self-trust is what you've actually been missing. Not discipline, not motivation, trust. Right now you're standing at a line. You can feel it. You've been here before, but this time you see it clearer. This isn't about what you say your standards are. It's about what you enforce when it's uncomfortable. And from this point forward, that's the only thing that matters. You are someone who holds the line.